Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Today on CityCast Denver. It's Tuesday, and we're talking about the biggest stories to start the week. I'm joined by Denver Post immigration reporter Megan Ululani Boyanton to dig into the latest updates on the Jeanette Vizguerra case and talk through an abortion bill moving through the State House. Plus, we hear from a listener about brass bands. Today is Tuesday, April 1st. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Megan Ululani Boyanton, good morning.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So before we jump into the news, I just need to make a minor correction to yesterday's show. In our guide to April, I said that the Rockies' inaugural season at Coors Field was 1994, but it actually was 1995. And they played their first 2 seasons at Mile High Stadium while Coors Field was being built. So just a minor correction. Are you a baseball fan?
I wouldn't say that.
Are you I like to go to a game to hang out fan? Because that's the kind of person
Correct.
I am. Okay. I'm like, opening day is this Friday. 'Tis the season.
Yes.
It's perfect for
I guess
patios.
we'll see if the Rockies beat their losing streak.
I mean, I don't feel like anybody cares about that at this point. You're just like, I'm going to go get a drink and
Exactly.
have a hot dog. So, okay. Well, Megan, we're having you on to talk about some big stories you've been working on over the last couple of weeks. And the first one is the detention of immigration activist Jeanette Vizguerra. So from the beginning, I mean, at this point in her time here in Denver, because she's been here for a long time, but she was picked up by ICE outside of her job at Target on March 17th, and she's been in a detention facility, as far as we know, in Aurora for the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
But what is the latest on her case?
Sure. So I was at the federal court downtown on Friday with a handful of journalists. It was supposed to be a hearing. It ended up kind of being like a short status update, if you will. And the lawyers for both the feds and for Vizguerra were there. Let's go back to when Vizguerra was detained. So that happened 2 weeks ago. The next day was kind of when the announcement came about, and soon after, her legal team filed an emergency writ. It's like a petition for habeas corpus, and essentially what that is it's a legal request that you put to a court to decide the validity of somebody's detention.
Basically asking, like, why is she being
Yes.
You need to tell us why she's being detained.
Yes, and they filed these emergency petitions in 2 courts, and that was in the federal court and in the 10th Circuit. And so this short hearing happened in the federal court, which has been that's where most of the action's been happening. So on Friday, Vizguerra's lawyers said that they wanted to amend this emergency petition to add that they think that her First Amendment rights have been violated because she is, known as an immigration advocate since back in 2017 when she was temporarily sheltering in 2 Denver churches to avoid deportation. And so the legal team is saying that her rights are being violated because she is an outspoken advocate and that her detention is quote unquote retaliatory.
I was going to say this is one of several high profile cases happening like this across the country right now, where there's conversation about some of these folks that are being detained, are they being targeted for their work? And so that's part of this. So they took this to court, essentially.
Yes. And so the feds, they were unopposed to that. And so now what we're waiting for is the lawyers for Vizguerra have until April 8th to file this kind of amended petition. And then from there, the feds have 21 days to respond. So we're kind of in a waiting period right now, although Monday of this week, we are actually seeing Vizguerra is going through with a reasonable fear assessment. It's an interview that a detainee does during their removal proceedings from the country, where an asylum officer kind of interviews them to see if they have reasonable fear to return to the country they're going to get deported to. And so that was also brought up during the hearing because her lawyers are saying, why is this happening? Like, we're trying to put a pause on the removal proceedings. And Judge Nina Wang has ordered the feds that they cannot deport Vizguerra or even move her from the state until this petition is litigated. But ICE and the feds are saying that this is like standard procedure and they have to follow this until they're told otherwise by the court. And so I think the end decision was that her attorney would be present during this. But those were really the big things to come out of that pretty short hearing on Friday.
And so we know that she is here. She has not been
She's
removed
in Aurora
from the state. I think that's important to note because I'm thinking about this most recent situation with a college student who was picked up by ICE. She was moved across states.
Right.
And so trying to follow what's going on. I know initially there was concern that she was going to be moved, but right now we know for sure she's at the detention facility in Aurora.
Yes.
Okay. Has she been able to speak to the public? Have we heard from her directly?
Yes, we have. There have been several protests since the news broke 2 weeks ago about her detainment, both outside of the Aurora facility and also downtown, just to kind of protest these actions against Vizguerra and other activists. And I know that her family, I've spoken with her 21-year-old daughter, Luna Baez. Vizguerra is a mother of 4. So Luna's been talking to the media about her mom's detainment. They get to visit her 3 times a week and talk to her on the phone. And so I know that Luna's been able to call her and have her speak to the public at these protests. So there is limited contact.
Okay. I think it's important too to note that she's a mother of 4 kids. Luna is 21, but
yes,
her other children are school age and
yes,
their mother disappears out of nowhere. And so it's good to know that they're able to be in communication.
Yeah, and 3 out of 4 of them are American citizens too, which kind of like immigration policy, the deeper that you dig into it, it's kind of like the more complex it is. And so there are all sorts of complexities with Vizguerra's case as you kind of like look at the history of it that don't make this very cut and dry.
And she's been, I think, in America, in the U.S. for 30 years.
Yep, since 1997 is when she crossed in from Mexico with her husband and her eldest daughter.
Wow. Well, we'll be watching this case. So I guess the latest is we're waiting on the court filings. What's the...
Yes. So,
what should we watch for next with this situation?
On and before April 8th, that's when we're going to get that amended petition from Vizguerra's lawyers. And then 21 days after it. So it kind of feels like mid-April is probably when we're going to see some movement. And then end of April, maybe beginning of May is when we're going to see a response from the feds. And from there, I'm sure there's going to be like another hearing scheduled to kind of go through those arguments.
Okay. Well, we'll keep watching. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, more news.
This episode is brought to you by Bookshop.org. Whether you're searching for an incisive book that helps you make sense of this moment, a novel that sweeps you away, or a perfect spring break read, Bookshop.org has you covered. When you shop at Bookshop.org, you can choose an independent bookstore right here in Denver to support directly with your purchase. Just pick your fave. Feel good about buying books online with Bookshop.org. You'll know that your money is supporting your local community, and you'll be helping indie bookstores continue to foster culture, curiosity, and a love of reading for generations to come. Use code CityCast now to get 15% off your next order at Bookshop.org.
Well, I have been reading the Kathleen Hanna autobiography, and the section about her relationship with Kurt Cobain was like so sweet and so poignant. It just like made me so happy. I didn't hear the whole story of their friendship before that book.
book, and it was really lovely to read. But it is a really sad book, and I'm having to read it in sections because it's brutal. But it's beautiful. And check our show notes to find bookshop.org's bookstore map, and don't forget the code CityCast for a bangin' discount. Just wait until they get to the part where she marries Ad Rock from the Beastie Boys. Amazing. This episode is brought to you by CAP Management. CAP Management helps HOAs plan sustainability projects and comply with Energize Denver, which is the city's program for making buildings more energy efficient. CAP has helped some 50 Denver HOAs reduce energy and water consumption, saving associations money and helping them avoid financial penalties. For listeners who own in or sit on the board of an HOA, CAP invites you to attend their upcoming HOA Earth Day sustainability event in downtown Denver on April 22nd. This free in-person event provides one-on-one access to HOA sustainability experts, education around the Energized Denver Ordinance, and a forum to meet and share ideas with other homeowners. Drinks and food provided. I was also just thinking about my mom and her HOA. They got chargers put in at their building for electric cars. They got a whole section of them, and it was because she joined with her HOA to make it happen. So to learn more, visit hoaearthday.eventbrite.com. That's hoaearthday.eventbrite.com. Okay, next we're going to dig into some movement on some really interesting legislation happening right now. But before that, we're going to step back a little bit to last November when voters approved Amendment 79, which made access to abortion a constitutional right in Colorado. But this move also gave way to tackling this issue that reproductive health care advocates have been talking about for a long time, which is public funding in relationship to abortion. So we're talking Medicaid, public employees insurance programs, things like that. But today, there's a Senate bill moving through the State House related to that amendment. Megan, can you talk about what's going on with Senate Bill 183?
Sure, definitely. So after the voters approved Amendment 79 last November, now the State House is kind of moving forward with implementing a lot of the policies that voters approved. So there are actually several bills that are making their way through the Capitol in order to implement different parts of Amendment 79. And so this particular one would help permit public funding of abortion because voters essentially voted to veto a ban on using public funds for abortion.
So when we say public funds, we're talking about requiring coverage for abortion care for Medicaid patients,
yes,
or Child Health Plan Plus program recipients using state funding, but also public employee insurance plans would have to cover reproductive health care, including abortion. So that's what we mean when we say public funding for abortion.
Exactly.
I think that's helpful. So what are opponents of reproductive healthcare related to abortion access saying about this public funding aspect?
Sure. So I spoke for my story about this fiscal note that's attached to the Senate bill with the Colorado Catholic Conference, which was one of the big opponents of Amendment 79. I know that they and other opponents, they were pretty vocal about how the Blue Book, which kind of guides voters through, all of these ballot measures, didn't list a fiscal impact for taxpayers. But that is because there was no fiscal impact attached to the amendment itself. Instead, the fiscal impact was going to depend on kind of what legislators' next moves were going to be. And so now we know with this Senate bill fiscal note.
So they're kind of saying voters didn't know what they were voting on.
Right.
A little bit.
Or that they didn't know the financial impacts on taxpayers.
Is there a way to anticipate the financial impacts? What does that look like, or what does that mean?
Sure. So I think the analysts who put together the fiscal note, they were able to kind of look at it deeper and decide that, I guess, apparently births covered by Medicaid come with added expenses, which makes sense.
Sure.
While abortion services are typically one-time occurrences. And so their finding was that there would be savings, a little bit of savings from funding these abortion services because of the terminated pregnancies.
So this has been a long time argument. I think for some folks on the abortion access side of the argument are saying, hey, this is a cost-saving measure, which is not always like the way that folks want to look at healthcare. But
Totally.
what I think they're saying with this fiscal analysis is abortions tend to be a one-time situation, cost this amount of money. Births, we don't know. They could, I mean, I'm just thinking about my own experience. Like, I had to be in the hospital for 4 days because of the situation with my child being born and how things go. So they're saying it could be a cost-saving measure. How are abortion access advocates, how are they talking about that fiscal side of it?
Yeah. So I talked to Planned Parenthood of the Rockies, which is, very pro abortion services. And Jack Teeter, he told me that, really he thinks that the fiscal note, this is not like the cost saving measures. That's really not the way that he wanted to look at this. He was like, that's kind of not hitting the importance of what this bill is going to provide, which is his point was that, insurance plans are finally covering, healthcare
access.
Yes, exactly. So he was kind of like, disregarding, any cost saving. This is, important for healthcare recipients, and that his pushback to the pro-life side being like taxpayers don't want to cover this. His point was countering that, one, the public did vote to approve this in Colorado, and two, the public actually never gets to weigh in on what you use your healthcare for.
Right. On any other situation.
Right. The public can't weigh in and tell you,
on my hip surgery.
Exactly.
Right?
Or if you broke a leg. So the public really can't, it's not a matter of public opinion when it comes to healthcare and what that covers, was his point.
I just think this case in particular, this situation really shows the stickiness of the conversation around reproductive health care and abortion access, because it's a moral thing where other health care things aren't. It's a financial thing where it's such an American insurance thing, frankly, to think about it from a financial perspective. But on the same side of it, I can see the politics around it being like, well, some people are looking for cost saving measures. This is one way, but I don't know. It's just an interesting look at Colorado's current state and approach to reproductive healthcare and abortion access.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to keep covering this too as it moves through.
Yeah, so that's what we're waiting for, is like we're just kind of waiting to watch this bill kind of go through its process.
Yes. So the Senate already passed it.
Okay.
Kind of on party lines, and then it just made its way through a House committee. Okay. So now we're kind of waiting for next steps.
And this is, again, coming off of Amendment 79. There's going to be several components that are going to fill this out as we talk about, like, voters approved enshrining abortion access in the Constitution. Here's all the ways that we're going to start seeing it manifested.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to watch.
Oh,
I have
definitely.
To say. This is really fascinating. Megan, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your work.
Thanks so much for having me. I love to be here.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and get up to 40% off with minimum purchase. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix or Light and Fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 6 remix varieties, 3 Epic Complete Protein Oikos remix options, or 3 craveable Light and Fit remix options. See remixyogurt.com.
It's Tuesday. We love to hear from our listeners, and I brought producer Olivia Jewel Love on to do that. Hey, Olivia.
Hey, what's up?
So, again, every Tuesday we hear from our listeners. We love to hear what you're thinking about, what you're responding to, things that we've talked about on the show. What have we got this week, Olivia?
We got a voicemail from Billy in Lakewood.
Okay.
Hey, Lakewood.
Hey, Lakewood.
Me too. And he's telling us about brass bands.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
let's
listen to see what he has to say.
Okay.
Hey there, this is Billy, your local Denverite, now living in Lakewood. I wanted to call in about your Friday, March 21st show. I actually wanted to give you just a quick little fact check about some of the bands and stuff you guys mentioned around the protests. The group that actually was part of the Colorado Workers' Rights little march and rally was the Guerrilla Fanfare Brass Band. And I'd actually really love to encourage you guys to look in and maybe talk about the vibrant little, lovely little brass community and brass band scene in Denver. There's Bada Boom, who plays at Bierstadt regularly. There's Guerrilla Fanfare, who also does protests and works with Prost Brewing and does events like the Chris Kimball Market. There's and have Son of Pride as well, Pride Fest for the last couple of years. There's of course the Brothers of Brass, who are wonderful staples of the downtown busking scene, as well as club shows and stuff. Those guys are great. And there's Gora Gora, who do events like Festo Festo that was once hosted at the Mercury Cafe, and I think have now moved to what is it? I think the Stanley Marketplace. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys a little fact check that it wasn't brothers at the Colorado Workers' Rights thing, but they're still great and they still show up for workers' rights and lots of great political stuff. So thanks, guys. Great show.
Billy,
Thanks.
this is just like, I just got a little bit of goosebumps. I love learning about local music, things I didn't know about. And I think I was talking about Brothers of Brass because they're friends of mine. But I love all of the recommendations he gave us. Bada Boom, Guerrilla Fanfare, Gora Gora Orchestra. I have heard of them before. They're like part of the klezmer circuit.
I saw Guerrilla Fanfare in a 4th of July parade
Awesome.
1 year. So they were great. Loved it.
But I love this because it's like this is a thread of the music scene in Denver and beyond, but also it's part of the protest and folks that are involved in different forms of political activism. Because I'm also thinking about the gentlemen that do our theme song, Los Mocochetes. They performed outside of the ICE detention facility last week in support of Jeanette Vizguerra, who we talked about earlier. So, but you can also see all these bands outside of political situations, like he said, in different arenas. So we'll put some links in the show notes. I love these recs.
Yeah, thanks so much for writing in or calling in.
Thank you, Billy. And thanks for correcting us. This is like, I just learned so much.
Love it.
So good. Well, thanks for bringing that to me, Olivia. That was nice to hear.
Yeah, talk to you later.
And hey, we're working on a show about all things gardening in the Mile High, and we want to hear from you. Do you need help with your planting schedule? Curious about the right types of plants for our fickle weather and heavy clay soil? Our gardening expert is ready to take your calls. Call the Gardening in Colorado hotline at 720-500-5418. Again, the Gardening Quandaries hotline is open at 720-500-5418. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell your favorite trombone player about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See ya! It reminds me of when I worked in retail. They'd be like, why is this so expensive? I'm like, call Mr. Gap. I don't know.
Mr. Gap.
There is no. His name was Don Fisher. He's dead. But anyway, like,